Do you feel, the AFT last week announced that they didn't want to take any more Gates money when it came to the Common Core, because the assumption is there that they're somehow being bought by Gates and they're not voicing their own honest opinions about the core, that there's something compromising about it. So I wondered, are you concerned at all that you're becoming a liability here, or how do you answer those concerns? People think that you're the unelected school superintendent of the country.
Well, certainly you combined sort of way too many things there.
Okay.
I mean, there's no connection between the AFT Innovation Fund. It was more about teacher evaluation, where locals would apply for various things. Anyway, it's not.
How about this simple notion that because you are funding so much of this, so much of the Common Core and charter schools and teacher evaluation, that you're promoting it and advocating for it, that you have become you're a very powerful figure in K-12 education right now, but you're unelected. Some people say that's undemocratic.
Well, it's important to separate out two things. There's how much resource and energy is going into new ideas and trying new things out. And then there's the question of what gets chosen to be adopted. And in terms of what gets chosen to be adopted, that's determined by school boards, governors, superintendents, and we're not a factor in terms of giving in those races or speaking out in those races. So they'll pick. They'll talk to the teachers, they'll talk to the parents, they'll pick what they choose to do. The role of the foundation has come in as saying, okay, the number of new approaches where teachers have an idea, are they getting funding to try out that idea? And so if the pool of choices that are out there for these political decisions to pick from is larger, including some that involve technology, some that involve teachers getting more feedback than they get today, studying those teachers who are amazing. We did 20,000 hours of taping. We looked at the characteristics. We want all teachers to benefit from the very best teachers. And I think in education, every field of endeavor you can say, what's its research percentage? The guys who search for oil, they spend a lot of money researching new tools. Medicines, they spend a lot of money finding new tools. Software, it's a very R&D oriented industry. The funding in general of what works in education, even studying these great teachers, is tiny. So the R&D percentage is the lowest in this field of any field of human endeavor, and yet you could argue it should be the highest, because this is the field that's catalytic to, are you good at jobs, how innovative is your economy. And so we are, in a technocratic way, we are funding pilot studies of peer evaluations, like in Hurlsborough. We're funding people doing software things. And so yes, we create, if those things go well, which some do not, then we create more options, but our voice is not there when the final choice of what to scale up is made. That's a governor, a superintendent, a school board who decides all those things.
Well, let me tell you what I'm hearing when I talk to people in education policy. The running joke is, sooner or later, everybody works for Gates, because when you look at how the breadth of your funding, and in terms of the advocacy work for the Common Core, you've funded on the left of the spectrum, on the right of the spectrum, think tanks, districts, unions, business groups. It's a wide variety. It's harder to name groups that are in education that haven't received funding from Gates than it is to name all the groups that have. And so the suggestion is that because of that pervasive presence, that you set the agenda, that it's harder to get contrasting views and to get real honest debate, because you are funding such a wide variety of actors in this field.
Boy, I guess we're not going to get to any substance here. I'm sorry. Our advocacy money is a rounding error, okay? The K through 12 education is 600 billion years of money a year that is spent.
Right.
And try to compute the R&D percentage of trying out new things. The Common Core, people will decide, and no, we don't fund. If you know some right-wing group that we fund, if you know some left-wing group, I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about when you say that.
The American Enterprise Institute.
We don't fund political groups. We don't fund Heritage, Cato, people like that.
The American Enterprise Institute.
They had some experts on educational policy. That's true.
There's some the Fordham Institute. They're right-leaning.
These are not political things. These are things where people are trying to apply expertise to say, is this a way of making education better? I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think wanting education to be better is a left-wing or a right-wing thing. And so making sure there's as many experts, and yes, some of them have some political views and others, who are doing evaluations. So we fund people to look into things. We don't fund people to say, okay, we'll pay you this if you say you like the Common Core. We've never done anything like that. We do evaluations of these things. And I think the amount of analysis that goes into how do we help teachers be better, it's not enough. And yes, we are guilty of funding things where experts look at these things and say if they're good or not. And they may not get adopted, or the experts may decide they don't like them. This one's come out pretty uniformly, no matter where you are politically, if you're into the substance of should people learn the material they're going to take on a national test. Is it fair to a student not to have been exposed to that material? Did the high standards in Massachusetts allow Massachusetts students to do better than students in places where that curriculum was less ambitious in terms of what those students would learn? And so these are factual questions. They're not, education can get better. That's, some people may not believe that. Education can change. We can do better. We're not doomed to be worse than all these other countries at how we help our students get better. And yes, we've engaged a lot of people. It's a rounding error. Education is a gigantic thing. And it deserves to have people of all political persuasions studying excellence.
Right. It is a gigantic budget, and your contributions are a small part of the overall spending on K-12 education.
A rounding error.
Right.
And it's not and our stuff is, it's not advocacy in the sense that we come in with a point of view. We have people study the Common Core and tell us we have them study teacher evaluation systems. We have them study great teachers. It's analysis to see what works.
Well, are you concerned at all about, let's go to the AFT. So a week ago, Randi Weingarten said, even though she's a big supporter of the Common Core, she doesn't want to take this Gates money anymore for the Common Core, for the innovation work that they've been doing around the Common Core, because her members have been complaining. They say that it's tainted, or it shifts the conversation, or it's somehow tainted the picture and tainted the discussion.
That's politics.
Yeah.
Are we going to talk about substance of improving education?
Well, I think that they're both intertwined right now with the Common Core. There's a lot of political pushback, and it's a hot...
So let's go to the substance. What is the thing that's being proposed as an alternative to the Common Core? And let's talk about the relative merits of the existing standards or some proposed alternate standards, not about, he said, she said politics. Is this something that can help the students? Now, when you poll the teachers, it's still a very popular thing, and that's unusual because usually the status quo wins and any new idea loses. This is a new idea that actually gets a very good majority of the teachers saying they think it's good. And if you look at which teachers have been most exposed to the idea, they're the people who are the most positive about it.
So I understand that it's got a lot of support from teachers, but they also are saying that the implementation is going awry. I mean, Dennis Van Roykel from the NEA said it was completely botched. Randy Weingarten says it's worse than Obamacare, the rollout of Obamacare. So are you concerned that with all this effort and to get these standards in place in 45 states and DC, that it's going to collapse under poor implementation?
When we talk about implementation, if we want to be in substance land and not political land, then we should talk about particulars. We should talk about a district in a state. We should talk about going to the teachers and saying, okay, did this go too fast? Did you need more training? What should happen here? And you bet, this is complicated stuff. Go into a few states and get into particulars, and I think you'll find that those summaries don't match up to the substance, but you will find things that, hey, should be changed, will change. Takes time to roll something like this out. In the case of Kentucky, they started 5 years ago. In Colorado, they started 4 years ago. Was that enough? Did they bring the right people in? I mean, this is serious stuff. And so, oversimplistic statements about it aren't really advancing the idea that, hey, this will have kids learning math in a far better progression. I mean, we should really get into why is this progression so much better, and why didn't this happen earlier? That's the substance of a kid who goes to college and gets put into remedial math. We should be talking about those examples. We should be talking about those kids.
Right. So this is the solution. This is the best method, you think, going forward to cut down the remediation rate and prepare those kids for college, higher standards, these standards in particular.
There's a lot of work that's gone into making these good. I wish there were a lot of competition in terms of people who'd put tens of millions of dollars into how reading and writing can be improved, how math could be improved. The more R&D dollars, the more choices where people are really getting into the substance of, did the kids learn? Did these kids have to go to remedial classes? The Massachusetts kids do it less. Why? Is it because of the water? Maybe not. That's a substantive thing that other states would have been better off having standards with the right progression and the right expectation, so that you're not fooling a kid that when they sit and take the SAT and there's a trigonometry question, you've never seen it because it's not on your state standard.
But in Massachusetts, even though they've got those standards and they perform so well on the PISA, they still have a big achievement gap in that state between the poor kids and their more affluent kids. So those high standards in Massachusetts haven't helped minimize that gap between affluent kids and poor kids.
The gap is lower. Those are the numbers. So yes, it has, but has it completely solved the problem? No, it hasn't. But when you raise the average, that means lots of kids who aren't going into remedial math. So it is an exemplar. It's something to be celebrated. You should learn what went well there. It doesn't take care of the entire problem. I mean, they still have, in terms of how funding is done, where the best teachers show up. The country as a whole has a problem that low-income kids get less good education than suburban kids get, and that is a huge challenge. It's partly a resource assignment challenge. Where do the really good teachers get put? How do those resources be put in? More resources should go to the students of low income. That's not the way it works today.
Right. Let me ask you about this, which is your belief in the Common Core. There are some people who, when they hear the speech that you just gave, where you're talking about standardization and common standards will help drive innovation and help us tap into the online revolution in education in a way that this part of the economy has really been untouched, that it's important that if we have common standards, we can really open up the online, the benefits of the online revolution to education. There are people who hear that and think, that's what he's doing. He really supports this because he wants to encourage the technology industry because he's the co-founder of Microsoft. He's being driven by business interests here. How would you respond to that?
I think you're sticking to the political side of this thing.
I'm from the Washington Post. We're in Washington,
Do you think
DC.
that passes muster?
I don't know. I'm not. This is the first time we've met. I'm not
Okay,
sure.
so give me the logic here.
The logic is
you're saying that it's all out of self-interest?
That's one of the driving forces behind your embrace of the Common Core.
Meaning what?
Meaning Microsoft and Pearson just signed a deal to put the Common Core curriculum on the Surface. So you've got a product. Microsoft has a product now that it's selling.
Yeah, we had the old Pearson stuff. There's no connection to Common Core in any Microsoft thing.
Okay. Well, I want to understand. That's a Bill? Let me just tell you.
That's staying away from the substance. Okay.
But it's a question when people learn that you're promoting.
Do you seriously think that the reason I like the Common Core is for some self-interested reason? That's what you're saying.
No, I don't know that I believe that, and you
don't know. You don't know?
I don't think that I believe that.
Why don't we just move on?
Okay, that's kind of a pertinent question that a lot of people who don't know you who are wondering, and I would just like some response to it. But you're saying that you don't want to talk about that, or you don't want to.
I'm saying, and I hope I can make this clear, I believe in the Common Core because of its substance and what it will do to improve education. And that's the only reason I believe in the Common Core. And I have this is giving money away. This is philanthropy. This is trying to make sure students have the kind of opportunity I had. There is nothing, and it's so almost outrageous to say otherwise in my view.
Okay, got it. The question that George raised in the session before, I actually wanted to ask you as well. Is there such a thing as too much technology in the classroom or in education?
Well, technology in the classroom doesn't have some stellar record up until now. The dream that when I was a kid, they rolled that TV set in and somebody showed up and taught us Spanish. That was the worst class we had all day. They somehow thought that the guy on the TV was some improvement, and then and then they had computerized drill and training and stuff like that. So technology has to deal with the fact that neither technology nor anything else has changed math achievement in this country up till now. So whatever reform, technology or otherwise, comes along, it's good to be skeptical, because even as we've intensified resources going against education very substantially, we haven't moved achievement. Other countries have. And they've done it very dramatically, but we've not. And so, the only way you can develop a view that even limited technology works is actually have teachers with students, sit down in a classroom and see if it works. And not just works in the high achievement schools where we're already doing okay, and it's fine to improve that, but it's not our biggest problem. It's to take these tools into the inner city where you have kids who don't think math is relevant to them and sitting there paying attention, and we haven't done a good job of making that what they want to do. I do think we're seeing now some really exciting examples where people who are using these tools, and it all goes under the umbrella of personalized learning, are getting benefits from it.
Can you talk about some of those examples?
Yeah, the measurement is that you get about 1.5 years of learning instead of 1 year of learning in that personalized environment. And if you ask the kids in terms of how they feel about their math skills, do they enjoy it, would they go back their own way, this stuff looks really, really great. Now, we're using particularly talented teachers, and it's always a challenge because whenever you start a pilot, the teachers who volunteer to get involved in that are not average teachers. And so as you scale up, you have to see if these, what are really phenomenal results, as you're getting into places where the hardware is less reliable, the amount of training might be less, and you're moving to a teacher who's less engaged and motivated in making this change. Does that hold up? And that's that scale-up process. We have 6 district awards that are going out in the near future that let people really take it to that next level of scale and see if this can be maintained.
So is the Common Core, I know you said it's not an experiment, but as you were talking about pilot programs and trying things and pushing the envelope and seeing what works, it occurs to me that the Common Core standards really, they are an experiment in a way, because they haven't really been tried and tested in any kind of scale anywhere here.
The 50 standards were never tested to see their excellence. They weren't subject to rigorous design. The Common Core is the one that the most R&D's gone into to make sure the progression is right. And so, you should look at some, I mean, if you want to get into substance, you should look at the progression where they talk to people about angles without explaining triangles. Those 50 things are not based on as much effort and energy and understanding as kids deserve. This one has gotten more. Now you could say, hey, maybe it should get even more and more and more, fine. But this is the most serious effort to, on behalf of kids, make sure as they go through math and reading and writing that you're building in a logical way that they will feel successful and they will do well.
Is this something that you would want for your own kids, to these standards, that you would want your own kids to learn too?
We'd all want our kids to exceed. Remember what this is. This is what you should know in 6th grade, what you should know in 7th grade, 8th grade. It's not how it's taught or anything like that. Yes, I expect my kids to know a superset of the Common Core standards at every single grade involved. I expect them to have the reading skills above what the reading and writing skills are in the Common Core standards. So absolutely, I don't see, who would not want that.
Okay. I realize you're not interested in the politics and...
Well, I'm not smart about it. You should go talk to the politicians. If you want to talk about why we fund research or things like that, I may have some insight.
Okay. Well, I'm just wondering, this was the goal of having standards, national standards, has been long elusive, and people have tried.
These are not national standards.
Okay, they're common standards adopted by 45 states in the District of Columbia.
We'll see. States at any time can change. This is a state-driven thing. At any point in time, some states will have these, some states won't. The Common Core lets them deviate to some degree. Some will deviate to the full extent. Some will deviate hardly at all. States will choose to make this thing work or not.
Can we talk about the assessments that are aligned with these standards?
Sure.
So they're the 2 consortia that have been working on them, and a number of states have peeled off saying that's too expensive, or they don't agree with it and they don't want to participate. And I just wonder what you lose. How many states do you need to have commonality? I mean, if everybody's off doing their own state tests and you can't really compare results across state borders.
You can always compare. NCLB did compare. So if the only need is to compare tests, it's okay to have 50. It can work. I mean, it's not very efficient, and the amount of money you put into the quality of 50 different tests just won't be as much as you can put into a smaller number of tests. But that's the decision. That's the way things worked, and they bridge for the NCLB score. So test score comparability, not a huge thing. In terms of, and picking the Common Core is not the same as which assessment test you pick. Mm-hmm. There can be any number of tests aligned to the Common Core. Commercial companies, other consortiums can come in and build this test. That's just fine. The 2 were bootstrapped to prove that it could be done, and they took an approach, one of them where it's dynamic scoring, which requires more R&D investment, but has big benefits in terms of the precision that you can deliver. And so making sure tests are better is somewhat orthogonal to the Common Core. Consistency will make the investments in a few test getting good spread to more students. But when you adopt the Common Core, it doesn't mean you pick one of those two consortiums. You don't have to.
And that, okay. Why do you think R&D has been so minimal in this sector?
Well, it's a known issue in capitalism that who's supposed to fund the R&D? So 1 million children a year die of malaria. Who's supposed to fund a malaria vaccine? The parents whose kids are dying don't have money, and the people who have money are very far away. They don't see that disease, so they and their governments won't tend to do it. And so you want someone else to pay for the R&D, and then you can learn from it. So in education, how much is the government set aside for R&D, and is there the equivalent, or even a tiny portion of what we have in National Institutes of Health or National Science Foundation? They do a tiny bit, actually, of educational research, but not much. And so this idea of what's your favorite doctoral thesis on why good teachers or amazing teachers are better than others? There should be dozens and dozens that we sit and talk and you say, oh, okay, I disagree with that one. I really like this one. I think this is what's important. I mean, it's magical. There are amazing, amazing teachers, and they're willing, if you ask them, they're not saying, no, I wouldn't ever tell. That's my secret. I couldn't possibly let anyone else know what I do to teach these kids. In fact, stay out of my classroom. It's proprietary for me. They want to share these ideas, and teachers want to get input. So the fact we haven't created an environment where we study the best, we share, we transfer those best practices, that's what gives me a lot of hope, is that is a thing that if the political process chooses, that can change. And I think that's pretty exciting.
One last question. Who is your favorite teacher in your life?
I had a lot of good teachers. My 8th grade math teacher, Mr. Stockland, he told me I should have higher expectations. That came at a very healthy time. When
Higher
I was being
expectations for yourself?
Yeah. That I was doing well enough, but being lazy, and that I could do more. And he was right.